In philosophy, there are five major groups of study: logic, epistemology, metaphysics, ethics, and aesthetics. The focus of this presentation is a focus on epistemology. What is epistemology? It is the study of knowledge, specifically, what do we know and how can we justify what we claim to know? There are many different schools of thought in regards to epistemology, and my focus during this presentation is on the topic of skepticism. Since the concentration of my degree is history of philosophy, I will briefly examine skepticism in its various forms, from the ancient world into the modern world. So, what is skepticism? The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy states that philosophically interesting forms of skepticism claim that we do not know propositions which we ordinarily think we do know. This does not apply to common situations, such as, I cannot know how many white marbles are in this jar, or I do not know what side of this coin will be face up if I flip it, but rather refers to situations such as, I have no justification to believe that the sun will set tonight and rise tomorrow morning. My examination of skepticism begins with the ancient skeptics. Ancient skepticism thrived roughly from the 3rd century BC to the 2nd century AD, and was divided into two different groups. The first of these groups was referred to as the academic skeptics. The academic skeptics asserted that impressions we gather from the world through our senses cannot impart any knowledge to us. For example, we can experience the world in a way that is distorted, like being under the influence of a substance. We can remember an event incorrectly, or generally be mistaken about our impression of things in the world. So, the academic skeptics would claim that knowledge about the world is not possible for human beings. Basically, the academic skeptics came to the conclusion that one should suspend judgment about the world based on the senses. The second group of ancient skeptics were called Pyrrhonian skeptics, which were named after the philosopher Pyrrho of Elis from 3rd century BC. The Pyrrhonian skeptics took their suspension of judgment even further than the academics. They rejected all dogmas and would even go as far as to suspend judgment about the idea that one should suspend judgment. They were always questioning everything. This reminds me of my two young children, both aged 3 and 5, and their endless stream of the question, why? Since Pyrrhonians suspend judgment about all propositions, they would have to suspend judgment about their own philosophy. Essentially, what they assert is something that they would have to suspend judgment about. It is a self-defeating philosophy. The next major school of thought was that of René Descartes from the 17th century, which is aptly dubbed Cartesian skepticism. Descartes' concern with epistemology stems from the fact that he could not find a way to rationally justify what he believes as fact. He began to conceive of his method of doubt, which begins with his dream argument. The overall idea of his argument is that there are times when we dream where we do not know that we are dreaming. If this is the case when we are dreaming, then how can we know that we are not in a dream right now? If we cannot know that we are currently in a dream, then we cannot trust our senses that make us feel that the world we are experiencing is not a dream and in fact reality. Think The Matrix or Inception. The next part of Descartes' argument is what is famously known as the evil demon scenario. He posits that it is possible that there is an all-powerful evil demon that has created a false impression in us that the world around us is real when it is in fact not. Given this potential scenario, even things like mathematics could not be as one thinks they are. Axioms such as a square is a four-sided shape with all equal sides and that 2 plus 2 equals 4 could all be false illusions created by this being. Remember, he is all-powerful. So it stands to reason that Descartes cannot trust his basic perceptions. At this point in Descartes' scenario, he has shed off the sensible world and is attempting to find what he thinks is the most basic form of knowledge that he can be sure to know. He thinks of a situation where he doubts that he exists, but his skepticism cannot go that far because even if he denies his own existence, he is still the one doing the denying. Even if the evil demon is fooling him into believing that he doesn't exist, he is still the common denominator. This is where the famous cogito ergo sum comes from, which means I think therefore I am, or I think therefore I exist. The only thing Descartes could know for sure was that he was a thinking thing. He then reasons his way out of his skeptical basement and up to knowledge, but that is not in the scope of my research, so I will end with Descartes here and move on to another prominent modern skeptic, David Hume. David Hume was a Scottish 18th century philosopher, often called the Jolly Skeptic, and has had a major impact on philosophy to this day. Hume's skepticism took issue with the knowledge we commonly claim to have, which is that of the unobserved. This is somewhat profound because we often make reference to facts, which we have not observed directly. For example, the fact that the elephant is the largest land mammal, the sun is approximately 93 million miles from the Earth, that the American Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th, 1776, and that the British Empire was the largest empire to cover the Earth to this date. These are all things that I can imagine not having knowledge of being true, since I have not observed these things. Here is a type of fact that Hume considers outside of this category. When he speaks of certain facts like a square is a shape with four equal sides, or that 2 plus 2 equals 4, we cannot imagine a world where these are not true. If you take one equal side away from a square, and is now an equilateral triangle and not a square. If you claim 2 plus 2 equals any other number than 4, it is not true. These truths are called necessary truths by Hume. If you try to imagine them in another way, they cease to be definitionally true and/or are contradictory. These necessary truths are relations of ideas according to Hume. His reason for asserting these relations of ideas are true are that since there is no need to go into the world to verify the truth or falsehood, then it can be assumed that these are true as operation of thought, which has to be true. Hume posits another category of facts, which he dubs matters of fact. Matters of fact are things that are verifiably true. It is 106 degrees Fahrenheit here in Phoenix, Arizona. The grass in my backyard is dead, and my face is unshaved. These are all matters of fact, but it is not impossible to imagine of a situation where these are not true. The operation of thought can be utilized to think of the opposite of all these facts as true. You can imagine that it is 20 degrees Fahrenheit in Phoenix. My grass is lush and thick, and that I just arrived home from a clean shave at the barber shop. These truths are not only verified through thought and are conceivable, but they need to be verified empirically to hold the truth value of true. I have briefly explored some of the major skeptical schools of thought and prominent proponents of skepticism. We have traveled from the ancient minds into the modern era of philosophy, and while it does seem that one cannot faithfully live out a life of skepticism all their days, there is some merit to engaging in this kind of thought from time to time. The core of philosophy is the love of wisdom, and that quest we must all embark on towards understanding the cosmos. Philosophy is the best discipline to engage our current held beliefs and challenge ourselves to question why we believe what we do. If we are lucky, when we emerge from childhood, we begin to push back a little bit at the beliefs we hold as true and really evaluate the likelihood we actually believe them. I see skepticism as a tool one can use from time to time to really go into the self and evaluate not only what, but why we hold certain things to be true. That being said, skepticism can be taken to the point of near insanity. If we ask a stranger on the street the time and they tell us 9 a.m., and it's mid-morning, we do not need to go verify with someone else that the person told us the truth. We can, however, happily examine our current beliefs, because as we age, we likely change our beliefs, and prune what we may not be beneficial to us anymore or truly believed anymore. You must be a skeptic, and be a jolly skeptic.